A-E-1 Source. Hi, my name is Yumin Ha. I am owner and designer for the brand under the same name. 2000s, 90s, like Japanese anime t-shirts or like anime integrated clothes. That's where the source of like all my inspiration comes from. A lot of the stuff that the New Jeans members wore are part of a big collection that I did with this Chinese artist called Oliwa to build out a full collection, and that's most of the stuff that the New Jeans girls are wearing, so I'm very grateful for that. How can fashion move a person idea sort of goes back to my initial response to seeing homeless people wear crazy fits in New York, and this is at some time somewhere for AT1 radio. I was born in Korea, and I was able to taste a little bit of the Korean education system because I stayed there until I was in the second grade. And then our family pretty abruptly moved to Shanghai for my dad's job, and I spent most of my adolescence there, growing up fully until I graduated, and then moved to New York for school again. Yeah, 100% some dissonance with the identity because I didn't know the alphabet, let alone Chinese, when I first moved to China. And my mom didn't speak Chinese or English either. And so what ended up happening in the first 3 months was we would just walk around. So we would just buy local ingredients, try to cook something that resembled Korean food. And I basically learned Chinese by forcing myself into like the Chinese kids community in my apartment complex, and took me about like a year and a half to 2 years to kind of be able to speak conversational level Chinese. So I actually came to New York without knowing too much about New York. To be very honest, it was because NYU was the best school I got into, and also to please my parents as a Korean kid because I came first as an econ major. But then after seeing that I was succeeding in the liberal arts and failing in math for econ and statistics, my parents, I was able to finally persuade them to transition into a film career and a film major. Yeah, so ever since I was very, very young, I was exposed to a lot of movies and comic books because my dad had a big collection of it. And so I would just be watching that at home. And ever since I moved to China, I actually had no access to any sort of television besides like a few Chinese programs. And so I ended up reading a lot of the comic books that I read and also rewatching a lot of the DVDs that we brought back from Korea. And that definitely helped pass time and to also really build my identity and liking for certain things. And that, I think that's where my deep-rooted desire to like make film came from, is just spending a lot of time alone reading and like watching movies. Yeah, so in high school in Shanghai, I first started getting into fashion just from like seeing fit pics or like celebrities wear like new brands, but I never knew how to get them or like go to a place in Shanghai because the scene was only rising at the point in 2016. But when I first moved to New York, which is also fall 2016, I was very shocked to see homeless people, crackheads, or just like, let alone just New Yorkers wear crazy fits to work at like 8 a.m. And that really inspired me. And then Grail just started popping off, and that was like a big pastime for me where I'd just be in class, scrolling through, just discovering for the first time vintage Japanese clothes that I never had exposure to. And also because a lot of the stuff I never knew existed, but wanted, because it was like a lot of 90s, 2000s anime merchandise that I'd always dreamed of, but just never knew they existed. And so I really got into fashion 2017 when I had sold enough amount of clothes and like bought enough amount and sort of knew what I liked, except a lot of the t-shirts that I really, really liked were like $500. And it was just like vintage anime t-shirts. So my fashion career started when I started recreating bootlegs or like cuttier versions of stuff that I liked. Like the Korean vinyls I was collecting, I would print that, just a full album cover on a t-shirt and so on. Yeah, so I had a minor interruption that I had to face during my college years, which was the Korean mandatory military service. Um, it was quite surreal because I'd finished my junior year and I think I had been making t-shirts for 2.5 years at that point, and I sort of had a style that I found by just printing a lot of t-shirts. And I was only starting to get a bit of public exposure, and then I had to go to the army. And I say surreal because I would never go back, but it was definitely an experience where it humbled me a lot because you just meet dudes that you would never meet in your normal life, and you spend 24 hours for 567 days straight. So it's a unique bond there, I think. I came back after a couple months after military and then finished school, and the school provides a year for you to find a job, basically. And I tried my best to find something in the film industry, and unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that I was offered were freelance, which doesn't guarantee a visa. And so it was a game time decision where I could make a gamble and see if the clothing thing that I had been doing would meet the requirements for a business visa. And I first got it rejected out at the consulate in Korea, actually. But luckily enough, I got back to the US and processed it again, and I got a pass. The only downside is that I'm not allowed to leave because it's like a one-time pass. So my status is legal. I'm allowed to be filming in here, but unfortunately, I cannot leave until I transition into a different visa. And so the new visa that I'm applying for is an artist visa. And because my business and my career is relatively fresh, I do have to build an impressive enough portfolio for people at the consulate to see and be like, hey, this guy is an artist who we would like to let travel outside the US. So that's what I'm working on, building enough impressive portfolio on paper. The visa that allows me to travel, I've been rejected once for, I guess, just out of sheer bad luck. Because on paper it was fairly solid. But I'm on the same type of visa. It's just a one-time version of the thing I got rejected. Yeah, so it kind of parallels my army experience in a sense that it's not my will to it's not up to me to leave or enter the country. It's just a bigger version of it. The big difference is that I have the freedom now to do whatever I want. And so first 6 months when I first started out the business, it was quite tough because I basically had to start making enough money to pay for everything, pay for the employee, pay for the office. And very fortunately, the New Jeans team reached out early on this winter, actually, so in January, just for some stuff that I had. And I sent out everything that I could in the shortest amount of time and didn't hear back for 2 months. And that I believe was the hardest time earlier this year, where I was just constantly losing money and not selling too many products until they put it on, and everyone else sort of started putting it on. Like you mentioned, Ollie Sykes from Bring Me the Horizon reached out for a piece, and a lot more stylists reached out. And the public exposure has definitely helped grow the business. So that's how it's been. A lot of the stuff that the New Jeans members wore are part of a big collection that I did with this Chinese artist called Oliwa. I had been talking to her for 2 to 3 years prior to the collection about wanting to make stuff with her, but only when I seriously got into just fully committing to the business, I felt ready enough to drop like a full collection with her stuff. And very fortunately, she was very welcoming of that idea and let me use all her art to build out a full collection. And that's most of the stuff that the New Jeans girls are wearing. So I'm very grateful for that. How can fashion move a person idea sort of goes back to my initial response to seeing homeless people wear crazy fits in New York, because to this day, I'm still inspired by a lot of the pedestrians that I just see on East Broadway when I'm smoking outside my office, because they just wear a mix of bootlegs, of bootleg luxury, and like crazy graphic t-shirts. And just the eerie combination of it all, I think, is one of the best fits that I've ever seen. My goal is to sort of replicate what I felt when I first encountered a lot of the Urahara fashion, a lot of the early 2000s, 90s, like Japanese anime t-shirts or like anime integrated clothes. And that's where the source of like all my inspiration comes from. And I try to try different things and sway away from the anime stuff and realize that it didn't give me the amount of satisfaction that making bootleg anime t-shirts did. And so I went back, and I think now my goal is to discover relatively lesser known newer artists and to integrate their art in the anime vintage tee style.
AE1 Sword.
At Sometimes Somewhere is produced by Audio-Technica for AT1 Radio. It is recorded at AT1 Studio at Technica House, New York. Follow AT1 Radio and Audio-Technica USA on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening.